Secretary, would you be kind enough to call the roll?
Chairman Carr.
I'm here.
Okay, Member Ketchum.
Here.
Member Golden.
Here.
Member Sue. Member Freed. Member Carolina.
Present. Thanks. I want to welcome Dr. Carolina to this. This is your first actual meeting. Your presence at the first meeting. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for handing it to me. Looking forward to working.
Appreciate it.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I forgot to ask for Ms. Board Member Shaw.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't know. Said she. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Just for the
So we have
record.
4 set.
Yeah.
We have.
Just for the record.
Thank you, sir. Well, you could have made the record reflect that. The minutes suggest that I introduced Dr. Carolina at the last meeting. I did, but I did so in absentia, and the minutes probably ought to reflect that. He was not here, but that I read your resume, I did all of the things, and I promised you I would do this. The agenda is deceptively short today. We have one other resolution to consider, and it is the adoption of the rate schedule effective January 1, 2020. As a part of that rate schedule, of course, there is included the recognition that AWR has suggested that an increase in each prices in its billing would be appropriate. I'm sorry that I didn't do that well at all, but you know where I am. There was a hearing, public hearing. That hearing was on the 15th of November. AWR presented. There were no members of the public present. We were prepared to answer any questions. AWR is prepared to answer questions today. We are here today to vote up or down on the matter. Let me put in the record a few things that are important, I think. Nearly 1/3 of DEP customers are enrolled in either the water or the sewer protection plan, 270,000 counts in total. Of the 100% of folks who have enrolled originally, 98 of enrolled customers remain in the program, 98% of enrolled customers remain in the program. Average surveyed customer satisfaction score is 95% of what they are doing. Most recent available claims data indicates that 80 to 90% of filed claims are being approved. AWR has not increased its prices in more than 5 years. The last increase taking place in effect in July of 2014. Modified customer terms and conditions were negotiated as part of the price discussions. Modified terms include additional coverage items, including channel sewer lines, combined water sprinkler lines, and include clearer, plainer language. And an explanation of those items that in more plain language, an explanation of the items that are not covered by the protection plans. The total cost of the price increase is approximately $13 per year per plant, or $26 per year for a customer purchasing both water and sewer protection. Are there questions from the members? Adam, good to see you.
Mark, my apologies.
No. How was the reading? I know, Adam, you had a few questions about the contract, and Ellen, I know you have as well. If those questions have been answered, then there's no reason to raise them here today.
Yeah, you know,
but if they have not been, then please do.
I would like to first of all thank the DEP staff and the Waterboard staff for responding to our questions and getting voluminous information. It's incredibly helpful and insightful as we go through this process. I continue to think the kind of repair program and the insurance is a terrific service. It is very low cost compared to the cost that a customer could incur if they had to do the repairs on their own. Encourage more and more people to participate in it, particularly as we see the high customer service rating. One thing I'd love to ask for as we move forward into the next contract period is just as we get updates on other programs as well, could we get updates on this program, particularly the denial rates, and understanding a little bit more granularly what those denial rates are. I think it's helpful for us also to know where we're seeing problems with the lines going into people's homes and what those may be caused by. As we can think through that, just to make sure that we can be updated on a quarterly basis or so as a regular board pack or whatever.
Yeah, we have bi-weekly business check-ins with AWR. We have weekly data exchanges on program, claims that are coming in, denials, the mix of jobs we're looking for. We have a whole report pack we circulate internally. So it's easier for us to add some basic data to the revenue pack you will receive
That would be
on a
perfect.
monthly basis to keep you guys in place.
Yeah, and
No problem.
I'm even happy on a quarterly basis. Monthly is fine, but quarterly might be a little bit better for us just to see the trends and just to be able to proactively ask questions or raise issues if we see them. But
Yeah, we're happy.
thank you.
Then can we agree that you will provide the quarterly?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there other questions?
I'd like to echo the thanks to the staff, and in particular getting all of the relevant and useful information, especially the information relating to plumbing industry inflation, because I think that really gives us a good sense of context that as to how the proposed price increase relates to regular increases of costs that are just occurring across the board.
Good, my questions were answered.
I want to apologize for missing the hearing. I understand the presentation was outstanding.
It was only because I didn't make it.
But it answered.
That was a tactic.
Okay. It answered a lot of my questions that I had. I want to thank you all. Lisa, for doing such a good job.
Thank you.
All right. There being no other questions or concerns then, may I have a motion, please, to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Evan. Is there a second?
Second.
Demetrius, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, and year 6 of this partnership, and it's our largest partnership, which is not a surprise, so it's very important to us, and I assure you we'll continue to try in every way possible to provide the high quality service that we have to New York City homeowners. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last agenda item is presentation. Mr. Kramer. Mr. Kramer is here to update us on the DEP Customer Information System upgrade.
Thank you.
And I gather it's all back here.
Yes. So I'll try to focus on you guys. But I'll leave it all back a little bit.
No, what I'll do is just come out there and sit with you.
Oh, perfect. Did you you've been here? Pardon? You've been here.
This is not a problem either.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. But it was,
I'm sorry. What about that presentation? No. That's fine.
And if I just may, for introduction purposes, Albert Kramer is the lead on the Building for the Future project, which is to replace the billing system that we currently have running. It's been operational for, I guess, almost 20 plus years now. And so it's a big capital and expense initiative, and we're on schedule. We're in the design phase now, development phase, sorry. So, but then Albert will go through it. And also present is our business information officer, Cecil McMaster, is also working closely with the customer service on getting the upgrade done. So, Albert, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Joe. So like Joe said, my name is Albert Kramer, project manager of Meetings Implementation. Adam, good to see you.
Albert was my intern about 10 years ago.
That's why I am where I am today. But like Joe said, we've had the current customer information system, billing system, for over 20 years, and it's something that works very well, but it's also something that's ready to be replaced, so that we can make a number of changes and improvements. So I want to just walk you through that. So the first question is sort of, why are we doing this, right? We have something that works, getting out millions of bills every year, $4 million a year in revenue. That's no small feat, much larger than what other water utilities do. But the reason why we need to make a change is for a couple of reasons. The first is, as Joe said, the age of the system. And with that comes a system that becomes harder to maintain. So it's programmed in a coding system, COBOL, that college graduates coming out today, they don't know that language. It becomes harder for Cecil and other leaders in the organization to find folks. And so that's why we're moving to a new system that's on a language that is more familiar, it's easier to recruit. And part of that is because it's based on a Microsoft-based solution. That's a name we've all heard of, something that's a lot easier to support and allows us to grow with a provider as opposed to a system that's essentially stale, except that it needs to be upgraded internally. This allows us to get on a patch of monthly, annual updates to provide additional features to our customers and our staff. Along with that, as the system grows older, there's a greater chance for operational risk as knowledge leaves, as folks retire. That makes things more risky. In addition, customer expectations have changed. You go to all these different conferences, they say, the competition isn't Con Ed, right? It's Amazon, right? People have different customer expectations. We've done a great job in terms of our online portal, providing leak notifications, providing access to information, but there are steps further that we can build on that success, and we want to use this program to do just that. In addition, there are some auditing weaknesses. There's some issues and controls that are sort of because of the legacy system. Bringing in a new best-in-breed system allows us to overcome those shortcomings. They bring in best practices, controls, and also allows us to get reporting that if you guys need, the Water Finance Authority needs, the Waterboard just provides us with more information to overcome these shortcomings. In addition, it's an opportunity to implement best practices, right? This isn't something that necessarily a new system is required, but we're taking a holistic look at the way we do business, right? So for example, we have a nice customer who I was speaking to earlier who has a dispute with her bill. Today, she would have to mail in a hard copy letter of her dispute. Why can't she do it online, right? That's where people are moving. So this is a way for us to adopt these sorts of best practices, both external facing to our customers, but also in terms of internally process improvements, efficiencies, reducing, allowing us to do things faster. So that's what this system is going to allow us to do. And finally, it's going to provide us with rate flexibility. I'm seeing a smile on the board. It's just going to give us more options. This is a system that can do more, and it's going to just allow us to have that option in the future. And so the system that I am referring to is from a company called Itinerus. They're a large CRM, customer relationship management system provider based out of Belgium, of all places, but they're actually very experienced. They've implemented CIS, customer information systems, in Boston, in Baltimore, as well as large cities in Belgium. So partnering with that Microsoft solution, their system is called UMax. And so it's something we were very excited to have selected, and we think it's really the best fit for our needs. Without going into too much detail, a project like this is very complicated, and thus it needs to be broken down into multiple parts. So at a high level, we're doing a number of things as part of this project. So we have at the top functional, that's really the business side, right? So that's where we have to review and figure out what are all the requirements we need, all the different parties to make sure that when we have a system, it does everything, right? We can't have a system that goes live and we say, oh, we forgot that we can't send leak notifications now, and then hundreds of thousands of customers that used to get that service don't have it. That across the entire site is what me and my team have been working on, really engaging the business and getting the support from Cecil, Acting Deputy Commissioner Mattarella, to be able to engage all of the business experts on this project. I think we have around 100 DEP staff, either part-time or full-time, working on this project, and 40 or more consultants. So it's a very large project, but we've got a really good team, and that's what makes my my job easier. Testing, this is something Cecil always says, no bad bills. So that's the most important thing. We will not go live or release the system until it's been vigorously tested, and we are 100% confident that the system works and that it'll send out. There's a lot of work behind that, but just wanted to share. In addition to data migration, we have to take information from the current system and make sure that it goes over. If your bill is $100 today and we go live, it should be $100 tomorrow. That information shouldn't change. One thing I do want to highlight, organizational change management. That may be a new term for folks. It was a little bit for me before I started. This is something where the importance of the people. You can put in the best technology system in the world, and if the people don't want it, they're not ready to use it, or they reject it, you're nowhere. And that's something that Cecil has been hammering home, that we've been working on. And I'll talk a little bit about later on what we're doing to reduce that risk. Training, very much connected. We have a whole training team making sure that the staff that are going to use the system are empowered and know how to use it so that they're comfortable and we can have a smooth go live. Integration, that's just, we have a number of different subsystems, such as AWR, who was here before. We have to have our system connect with them so that if a customer signs up for their program, that information has to smoothly flow back to our system. Our system needs to change the way that they're billed. Sounds simple, there's a lot of moving parts there. That's why we have a really good team working on that. Infrastructure, the actual hardware that makes this all work. Then we have a PMO, a project management office, that consists of DEP personnel, consultants from our trusted advisor, EMA. They're actually a utility consulting company that does this for a living, advising utilities, and they've been a great asset to us in order to help us with some of avoid some of the slip-ups that other utilities go through. And then application maintenance, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but once we have the system, once we own the system, it's our responsibility. We have to make sure that we as an organization are ready to run the system on our own and not be able to not rely on a consultant. And that's something that we're working on as well. I'm very, very confident that we'll be successful.
I just wanted to interrupt with a quick question.
Yeah, of course.
On the hardware piece, is the physical hardware something that DEP is going to maintain in-house, or are cloud services going to be used? And I ask that because we've got a lot of questions around cybersecurity, and I know that there are companies that maintain server farms, and all they do is they're just in that business, and they have to make sure that the cybersecurity is always up to snuff. I know it's a really difficult thing to do. So I'm just curious if the plan is to do that in-house or to use a third-party provider.
Cecil, speak to that.
So the short answer is yes, we're going to be using Microsoft Azure, the platform, going to be a cloud-based platform with Azure. And like you said, that reduces the risk in terms of the infrastructure and the cybersecurity, but also the business recovery, right? Because we could leverage the cloud, Microsoft best practices. So the short answer is yes. It would be production would be in the cloud, but we would also have the ability to have infrastructure capabilities that in 3-5 years, if we need to come back on premise for whatever reason, we would have that capability with. But it's a cloud first premise.
Yeah, I have a question.
But please ask about
Okay, because you're getting a whole group of people do it, the tax people do it, and I'm a computer user. Most elderly people are not. And this is the whole group of people you're missing. There are, I looked at the census the last time, there were 50 million seniors. Okay, so if they're not using this and are not used to your system or utilizing the updated computers and the software, it doesn't help, young people aren't getting much needed. You have to train the elderly also, and you have to give them access and teach them how to use it so that they can buy the insurance.
No, and that's a great point. And what I would say is that the system itself is internal. facing for the most part. And that being said, the same borough offices that allow folks to walk in and have conversations with our staff in all 5 boroughs will still be available. If you want to pay your bill by phone, that will still be available. If you want to call in and talk to a customer representative, all that still exists today will still be available. That being said, the importance of our public-facing portal in terms of allowing it to be easy to use, that is something we're taking into consideration in terms of larger font sizes to make sure that it's easier to read. So I appreciate the feedback, and I'll make sure to bring that back to the
Man, people will still be getting mail checks. I mean, mail bills, and you could still mail
Now,
a
we
check
can
if you
understand
choose
that a
to.
lot of the seniors that here that I speak to, a few, don't even understand the taxes. That's why I want to use this. So we need to, as for home ownership, we really need to update the elderly population. We really do.
Appreciate your comment very much.
So moving ahead in terms of project goals, we've talked a little bit about this, but it really is to transform DEP into a best practice organization, follow a lot of the trends in the industry. We have done a lot of that in a lot of areas, but there have been areas where we've been held back by the existing system or by the inability to take this holistic review of our business and the way we do business. And this is going to allow us to overcome that. In addition, it's going to allow us to do more with data, more analytics, more reporting. It's really going to empower our users, our supervisors, our internal leaders to be able to do more with that and work a bit smarter in terms of focusing our resources. We talked about trying to allow more folks to do things online if they like, but if folks would like to stay offline, they're more than welcome. We're also, as a part of this, going to have a new bill, and so that's the part that I think customers are really going to be excited about. Honestly, from a customer perspective, they're just going to see a new bill, and they're going to see a new portal, and that's really all that they're going to know that has changed, but that's the face of the organization, and that's why we put so much effort into it. I think it's something that folks are going to like a lot, and honestly, how could it be any worse than our current bill? So the bar was a little low there. But yeah, and then additional access to information and more financial reporting, as I alluded to before. In terms of the project, Joe mentioned that we're in the development phase. This is a 20-month implementation. It's broken up into 5 phases. The last phase is the operations phase, which is after go live. We're looking at a late November, early December implementation next year. The main takeaway from this slide is that there's a lot going on. And that's why we have such a large team, but a really strong team, working on all of these different tracks, on all these different sub-activities. So today, we're in the development phase, which is essentially starting when the project started in April. We spent 3 months gathering what are all the business requirements, what do we need the system to do, no small task. Then we identified what's the difference between what UMax, which is an off-the-shelf solution, can do compared to what we needed to do. I'd say there was a 90% match, but 10% it wasn't there. That's where the design phase was, where we went in and said, how do we need to tweak the off-the-shelf system to meet our needs? And that's a big difference than the way we approached this project last time. There was an earlier attempt for a new billing system, and that was almost wholesale a customized solution. And this, by going off for this off-the-shelf solution, it reduces risk because we're not building something from scratch. We're not the only water utility that has these needs. Let's take best practices and then tweak it to meet our needs as opposed to starting anew. Spoke about this, but highlights to date. I think the most important thing is we're on time, we're on budget through the first 2 phases. It's complicated, it's challenging, but we have an excellent team. And now in the development phase, we're a combination of our partners at Itineraries are developing the different changes and tweaks to the system. We're also doing development work on our side and preparing to test that development for 8 months until implementation at the end of next year. I think this is a slide that will be of interest to the board in terms of risk management. So projects like these are naturally very risky. None of the things I'm putting up here are unique to DEP, but more to projects of this magnitude. I think the most important takeaway is that the project management office takes risk management very seriously. We have a risk register. We provide updates to our executive sponsors, Mr. McMaster and Mr. Mandarella. on a regular basis. In terms of the top risks, it really comes down to the complexity of so many moving parts. You'll have utilities that will do these things in phases. They'll implement just a new public portal could be a project on its own. Just a new bill could be a project on its own. We've opted to go with doing multiple pieces at once because of the efficiencies there and the ability to leverage one vendor to provide that entire solution. But there is risk there, and that's why coordination and alignment is really a main theme of the PMO and the project, to make sure everybody's talking and coordinating. And when we do get stuck somewhere, we escalate to our sponsors as soon as possible so they can provide resolution. I spoke about the commercial off-the-shelf aspect, but that's really important. Where a lot of these projects go wrong is where they say, you know what, but it's the New York way of doing this, so it has to be this way. You know, we've had ways where we said, you know what, we do it one way, but it seems like the entire industry does it a different way. We're just going to go with the industry rather than trying to contort an existing system to meet our needs. And I think that's going to be a key reason for our success. Organizational change management, this is the people side, so important. We actually have, and rare for one of these projects, we have a member of our team who's just focused on organizational change management. Her name's Mary Phillips, and she's working with a consultant, EMA. She works for us, but she has an advisor that's helping as well, providing best practice and really getting the word out about the project. Everything kind of silly from an internal newsletter to also listening to people, understanding what's changing and really hearing people out. And finally, being ready post-go live, right? The vendor comes, they help us with the system, but eventually they leave, right? And the system needs to be ours to maintain. And so we have to make sure that we have the team internally, both on the business side and the IT side, in order to support it going forward as new updates come, new changes, additional projects come out of that. So that's the short and quick version of what we're doing with the billing system. But yeah, I wish I could take credit for that photo. But happy to answer any questions the board has. Of course.
I have not heard COBOL e-base those terms for many years. Is it that this is such a large system that it took so long to actually manage this type of change? Is that the prevailing sentiment?
So the system itself, the COBOL portion is the mainframe. That's sort of like this. I'm talking about the current system is like the basic engine. What's allowed us to stay so cutting edge for a long time is that we have a team that is built on top of that, an interface for users to build a different public-facing interface to provide those leak notification AMR services on top of that. But yes, you're right. That's why it is more difficult as those resources who are really fluent in that language retire and go on to greater things. That's why bringing in a new system like this allows us to stay cutting edge going forward.
Are you dedicating some resources to the problems that arise as you try to address organizational change management? It has been just a pitfall for many of us in different parts of our lives for years. It is extraordinarily difficult to get people to understand the advantages of moving to a newer, better, more information driven system. You've got one person who's doing that, and that person has a consultant. Is that enough? Are you looking at it from a perspective of are the resources sufficient?
So that's a good question, and we're always evaluating and changing. What I will say is that that's the leadership side of it that has access to a much larger team.
And what we've been doing, Mr. Chair, is that, Cecil and Vincent have been working in terms of like the organization transformation. We don't know what it's all going to look like when it's done, but we've already identified where do we need additional resources, or where can we change people's responsibilities without maybe changing their job. So we're trying to do as much as we can internally to be able to say people will be able to grow and develop into having these functions. There's people that are embracing that. We know we're going to get people that are going to resist that. And that's where, Mary Phillips and the team, she will have, I think, some additional people coming on that will help with that. And that's going to be very telling to go through their I think we also are looking and saying, where do we need to get additional staff now? Analytical type staff, computer type personnel, because it is going from, as Dr. Demetrius said, we're going away from the COBOL days, so those people's skill set won't be needed anymore. As I said, most are retiring. We need to make sure that we have the IT expertise as well to be able to come in and do
I
that.
agree.
So we've got an organizational structure as well. We also have, I think I at least told this to you, but we also have our former Deputy Commissioner Nancy Seinfeld, who she's working for us. She's working on Waterboard, the smaller contract, just to be there as a resource to help as well with some of this, guidance. So that's she's been very good for that in terms of keeping us engaged on some of the things. But as needed, I don't want to say that that's I have utmost confidence in Cecil's abilities and his team and Vincent and everyone else. And where we do need resources, we're being very deliberative in making sure we're raising those up to OMB if we're saying that we need to hire people. And they've been very open since they recognize the importance of the billing system to the revenue protection around $4 billion.
So how will workshops?
Yes. So Cecil was alluding to, and one of the things we're doing from a
SLD-based COBOL. So if you need those books, I can come. Computer operations.
Mr. McMaster was just alluding to some of the work we're doing for change management. So we're holding workshops where we're literally, having affected staff, key members, walking them through and giving them exposure, right? So we're both getting them into the system and showing them what it's like early on, right? Hey, it's not scary. Hey, it's actually Microsoft. It looks actually pretty familiar. People have said, oh, it looks like I'm using Microsoft Word or Excel. And I've also, and other members of the team, have been briefing staff and explaining this is the project, this is what we're doing. Cecil's been doing that. Vincent has been doing that as well. So that, in terms of giving folks exposure. And I think one of the biggest things is just, it's a 20-month project, but if you tell people about the change 2 months or 3 months before, that's far too late, right? And so Nancy and Cecil, for a long time before the project, was talking about the change, making it important that we engage with staff early on. It's still going to be challenging. There's still going to be people who will resist, right? But you want it to be an isolated group, and then what Mary and the team are doing are then coming up with a plan for resistance management. How do we engage with those key people? How do we also get really respected members of the organization to be champions of the project? And they go, oh, if Steve likes it, if Sally likes it, how bad can it be? It sounds silly, but that type of stuff makes it.
That's really important.
Yeah.
Cecil, thank you for the work that you're doing on this. I am always afraid that when you do massive change like this, that the biggest stumbling block you have are all the people who stand up and say, nobody told me this was going to happen. They poo-poo the project, and then you have to deal with that because they then become issues. And thank you for your focus on that.
Absolutely. I just have one.
So do you have someone on your team that's looking at what the website and even the materials are going to look like to consider individuals with disabilities to make sure that that's being thought about at the front end? With font, what's being said, or whatever, even the screen to be considered.
Yes, so that's a really great point. We've actually partnered with our Bureau of Public Affairs and Communications, and so they actually come from that perspective and have been reviewing and said, like, hey, the font on the bill is a little too low here, or whatnot. So we're absolutely looking at it from that perspective. What I will say is that we also, reminding me on the letters that we send out, right, it's also important to have that perspective. So make sure to take that back. But yes, we're trying as much as possible to make sure the documents we send out are readable and understandable, not just to a segment of customers, but all customers.
This sounds like a massive and very important project, so thank you for all of your work on this. It really is very impressive. Quick question that I had, you referenced being on budget. What is the budget for the project, and is that a capital allocation that's been made through DEP, or how is that money allocated?
We had, and I'm going to pull from my memory bank here, I believe it's total of about 35 25 million, of which about 22 million, recollection serves me, is capital eligible because it is buying the infrastructure, the programming, that all is. Then the balance of that is expense, which is, for the things that we've been working closely with bond counsel in terms of seeing what's eligible, what's not eligible. Such things as training, training manuals you can capitalize, but, the stuff that we're doing with personnel, all of our own staff time, is not capital eligible for the most part. It's just, everybody the city does that. But, so we've got that very clear distinction. But total, we're in like the low 30 million-ish range, I think. 20 million is capital and the balance as expense.
And the system is, the water system's very customized.
Well, yes, this will be through on the capital side and going through GP, so it'll be trued up at the end of the year when the whole system, counting goes through there.
Thank you.
So I first of all, thank you to the DEP and Waterboard staff. I think this presentation came at my request. I'm a technocrat at heart, so I think this is one of the most exciting and important projects that's going on, both because of what it enables us to do, but really because it unlocks so much opportunity for the data. To your question, I think it's not usual to have a system installed, but it's not unusual either. In many cities, I know we're dealing with paper copies and having to go. So we're probably somewhere in the middle from what I've seen in other cities. So appreciate that DEP is paying attention to this. My question and my interest in this is all about stormwater and trying to think about how we can be more creative with stormwater fees and doing it based on a purpose area and kind of catching up to some of the leading cities that are thinking about how do you better incentivize reduction of stormwater overflow and properties. In no way, shape, or form suggesting we have an idea of what that could look like. I think there are different models out there. We have not had a chance to discuss them or think about it as a board. Just wondering and making sure that as this is being designed, there's nothing that would obviate within the functionality of data collection, separating stormwater from water fees and making it based on a pervious area versus 145% of their water bill or lines going in. Just making sure that that flexibility is built in to give us the full range of options.
Yeah, so the short answer is flexibility. That's what we configured the system in mind. So, we're going to go live with the same rate schedule that we have today, but the ability of the system, flexibility, whether it's stormwater, whether it's a fixed fee, whether it's other types of things, that's all within the system that's available to us.
And that's where some of the things you expressed interest in, we can't do now.
Exactly.
And we won't be able to until we get this. And that's where we are working off of the industry practices, because a lot of other cities have already gone through that to look at stormwater charges or other fixed charges that Albert said. So this, we're definitely looking at it from that perspective of having much more rate flexibility. I mean, the other thing that we're also thinking about is affordability.
Yep.
How can you have measures made that where you can have affordability programs? And we have some now, but we're very limited by the system to be able to expand those. I mean, we also have to keep in mind that we do still have to be cognizant, the board's responsibility is we have to be raising rates to pay for the system.
Yep.
So how we raise them
Yeah.
is a wide gamut.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we still got to get enough money to make sure that we're watering, cleaning the waste.
Our conversations in the past around things like conservation pricing, stormwater charge, a whole host of things where the data and the billing system has been one of many things that have prevented that. And having dealt with this in some cities that I've worked in, it is a real and legitimate challenge and concern, particularly when it comes to our operations, making sure we have enough revenue to pay for the system, that the staff can operate in, that the customers are getting the correct information and not dealing with the hassle of incorrect bills and having a huge backlog of appeals. So fully appreciate that. I just, given that there is a just November, December 2020 go date, thinking about how we time some other studies we want to do so that we have information to begin to take action and think about it in 2021 or 2022. So I guess that's less of a question for Albert, more of a question for others on thinking about what those studies may be around impervious area charge, around conservation. Yeah, and how they're timed so that it's not the system's live in 2020, then we can start thinking about what studies are needed. So my hope and expectation, and I'll lay this out there, is board member, should I still be a board member in 2021 and 2022, is that we were having those conversations and able to have those considerations as part of the rate process. You know, making sure there's enough time to test the system and that we don't have a new system and a new rate structure and compound the complexity of that. But this has been one of the big things that's been flagged as we can't think about that introducing different innovations in the rate structure because of the data and the billing system. That won't be there in 2022. So, you know, I'd love to think of those studies.
I think we share the goal.
Yeah.
That conducting some of that analytical work we're doing right now with the Sustainability Bureau in parallel to the technology.
Excellent.
We don't want to kind of wait for tech to be the gating guide.
Yeah.
We hear you.
Yeah.
And I would hope, just one additional riff on that is, I would hope that this provides us with the kind of flexibility you're talking about to think about conservation measures that can be driven by data. Thinking in particular about some utilities, electric utilities in particular, that have incorporated into their billing information for customers about how their usage compares to similarly situated folks in their area and of similar size units and all that sort of thing. And that kind of data, when provided to high users, has been incredibly effective in encouraging conservation. People who may not realize that they're particularly high water users learn that they're sort of out of whack in terms of where they stand relative to other folks in their community, will start to conserve power more, and power utilities have been doing that more and more where they're trying to promote conservation. And I would hope that this kind of system allows for the collection of that sort of data to implement that and other innovative conservation measures as well.
Definitely flexibility for the future.
Thank you.
And I just want to reiterate my appreciation to the staff for continuing to be responsive to my questions on this and understand the time. So my comments are not a suggestion of, I don't think they're being met, but just to continue to reiterate.
Thank you for asking questions that are generated from this presentation, because I think it's excellent. I'd like to have you all come back mid-year.
I think that'd be appropriate.
If you have time and work at the schedule, to just update us on whatever progress you're making and what issues you may bring to be happy to the process. Thank you, Cecil. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Are there any other questions to come before this board? Sir? Didn't you do that? No, okay. I seem to fall short. I mentioned the minutes. I asked for a revision as the first item on the agenda. Thank you. But I did not ask for the approval of minutes.
I make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Member Golden. Member Free, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. The minutes are approved unanimously. Now, is there any other business to come forth? Hearing none, I have a motion, please, to adjourn.
Happy to make that motion too. Oh, happy to second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
We adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm gonna-